Well, now let me introduce you to the principle of security. The principle of security. Now, by security, I don't mean what you may think, that the goal is to be safe, right? The goal is not to be safe, right? These are the principles of strategy. And the goals that we have to do with accomplishing an objective, right? These principles, even, the goal of each principle is aimed toward accomplishing an objective. We might even say winning, right? Well, given that that is what we're trying to do, and we're doing this in a complex operational environment, organizational life, and business competition, whatever may be facing us in trying to accomplish this goal, it's important for us to understand the principle of security. So let me define the principle of security. And again, I'll define this one with a command. Never permit the opposing force to acquire an unexpected advantage. Again, never permit the opposing force to acquire an unexpected advantage. Now, this may seem obvious, right? If you want to be secure in your plans, you have to make sure that whatever the opposing force is, whether it's a complicated, thorny situation, or it could be an actual enemy that you have, or a competing company, whatever the case is, you must not allow them to gain an advantage. Okay. And sometimes this simply occurs when we don't deal with a problem, right? There's some particular organizational problem, and we just let it go, we procrastinate, and then this problem just becomes a terrible, terrible problem in our workflow or in the management of our organization. Ignoring those sorts of problems is a violation of security, the principle of security. Equally, when we think in terms of, if an organization thinks in terms of trade secrets, or if you work for the military and you think of governmental or diplomatic or military secrets, right? Keeping those things secret, the reason why we do that is for the sake of security, for not giving whatever the opposing force is, an unexpected advantage, right? An unanticipated advantage. Well, there are three subpoints to the principle of security. And let me go ahead and explain those. First, to have security, you must have intelligence or knowledge of the opposing force, right? You have to know what's going on. If you were surprised, then that lack of knowledge that you have is an advantage for the opposing force. All right. Next, we must have continual protection against the opposing force. If you are always vulnerable to the opposing force, then you don't have protection against it. You're not secure. There's a difference between fighting inside of a fortress and just fighting as a lone individual person without armor on a battlefield, right? Or in organizational life, if you have no allies, no relationships, and you're just vulnerable to others, then you're not practicing the principle of security. If you have a certain goal in your organization, you may need to wait a while so that you can cultivate allies in your organization so that you actually can practice the principle of security. If you don't, your plans will not, or the objective that you're trying to accomplish will not actually be accomplished. And a third component to security is a final stand against the opposing force. A final stand against the opposing force. If you continually allow an opposing force to have the opportunity to just take away your resources and fight you and fight you and fight you, then the result is eventually you will lose. You must have the opportunity to take a decisive stand. Now, it may be a decisive stand where you take this stand and you, through policies, have to minimalize a problem. Okay, well that's great. You know, sometimes you can't have absolute security where where there's no way for somebody ever to know what you're doing. There's perfect protection and an absolute final stand. You may not be able to have that, but I want you to understand this concept that you want to aim toward an actual final stand where you can end this particular problem. Oftentimes, and this happens in psychological counseling, people will talk about struggling with a problem or wrestling with a problem, but notice that in that they're not practicing the principle of security. Why not just deal with the problem, have it be done? I know you can't do that with all problems, right? But it's true that studies have shown that people tend to solve their problems when they run out of money for therapists. Now, why is that? Well, they can't talk to the therapists anymore. They want to have some victories, so they, oh yeah, I've decided to solve my problem. Now, again, I'm not trying to mock people who get therapy. Obviously, it's having counseling and therapy is very important in certain situations. Okay, but I'm pointing to a misunderstanding in the principle of security regarding solving problems. If we want to solve a problem, it's necessary to have that final stand where we actually think of our objective and moving toward decisively stopping the opposing force. So these are the three components to understanding what security is. And in the solving of whatever the complex problem is, you must think very carefully through the principle of security and make sure that you apply it in solving this problem. Otherwise, this problem will keep coming back again and again and again.